Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sami Assad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings, human listeners.
Greetings to everyone. If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, thank you for trying something new. I really appreciate it. I think new listeners are what drives me forward, although I also like our old listeners. Now I've got myself in a really pickle here, a really big pickle here. That was the voice of my colleague Benjamin Hunting. Not only is he a fellow automotive journalist, but he's also a very good friend of mine. Isn't that right, Ben?
Affirmative.
Okay, thank goodness. We are still recording and you are still my friend. This is important.
I am fully engaged.
You can find Ben's work all over the internet. Ben, give them a couple of URLs or publications that they could just punch into their Bing or Google or whatever other DuckDuckGo.
Do you think URL is going to be like a term that continues to exist in the future? Like, I don't know. It just seems like a holdover from the days when you had to put in HTTP and all of that stuff in the address bar. Nowadays, people just type where they want to go into Google, I think, and then Google or DuckDuckGo, as you pointed out, takes them there. Or they click on a Facebook link and are instantly radicalized.
I like it when I see people who use Facebook as Google. I think that's the best part.
That's true.
And then they
make a post that says it says like Alexa, open garage door, and you're like,
Ben, come on, tell them anything. Where can they Facebook search you?
Sure, you can Facebook search me at Car and Driver, at Motor Trend, and at Inside Hook.
And you can find me on the internet at publications such as autotrader.ca, driving.ca, and Nouveau magazine. That's less on the internet. That's more in physical print medium. Ben, we've got some cars to talk about this week. Some pretty one's kind of cool. I think I will really enjoy talking about this until you break me down and make me cry. But I recently drove the 2024 BMW X2. Which is a product that people might have forgotten about.
Okay, so I remember liking the X2 because it was kind of in X35 trim. I think that's what it was called.
Yep.
It felt more like a hot hatch than a crossover. It was really just a hatchback that was relatively fun to drive and, not all that tall off the ground.
Yes.
Are things the same or are they different now? I'm worried about what you're going to say.
Listen. If you really like that previous X2, just stop listening now. This is a problem. Because I agree with you, that old hot hatch kind of feeling that was found in that M35i model, it is a different product what they've got nowadays. It's less hot hatchy, and it's way more practical, which is where the X2 stumbled the most. It was extremely compact inside.
But was that really a stumble? Because to my way of thinking, we already had an X1, right?
Yes.
And we already have an X3.
Yep.
And both of those are the practical versions of the X2, because the X2 was supposed to be the flashy coupe, I guess. That's how I interpreted it.
And they've changed that. I mean, obviously, BMW suggests that all cars must be useful to somebody in some way or another. Now, this is based on the the brand new, recently updated X1, which is significantly larger than the old one. And this one is even longer in length, at least, than that X1. So what used to be kind of a small car and a like couped version, it's not even a coupe. Like, I don't know what to call it. This looks like a sedan on stilts now. And as a result of its sedan on stilts kind of profile, it is longer than the X1 and slightly less practical because it doesn't have a ton of cargo room due to the height of that roof.
So
another weird thing to point out when in the transition this time around, it doesn't have a rear windshield wiper.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I drove a vehicle without a rear windshield wiper lately, the Ioniq 5, which we talked about on last week's show, and it was impossible to see out of the rear. In the winter months, it just instantly becomes dirty, and it's a real hassle.
Yeah, I had that experience just as I was returning this product, and really bummed me out. Really.
What's the justification for it? Like, what's the reasoning?
I didn't get any reasoning. That's just the way it looks now.
Now, the platform for this vehicle, since it's bigger, is it based on the 2 Series sedan that I don't know if... Does that still exist?
The Grand
Grand Coupe.
Coupe? I don't think so. I think this is completely related to a mini product. This is the Countryman.
Well, the 2 Series
X1.
sedan was also a mini product. The Grand Coupe.
So maybe they're all related. This is a modular product as a result. But it's important to bring up what we liked about the old X2 because I think that has been lost. I think that is completely gone now. And in its place is a good car, but one that is worryingly similar to the X1 in terms of driving dynamics, and that's a problem.
So the styling is just, I guess, marginally
is a major part
different?
It's a major, pardon?
Marginally different, or
no. The styling is totally different than the X1 or the old X2.
Than the X1, the current X1.
Yeah, it is. I think it's significantly different looking than the current X1. And I actually find it to be somewhat, it has a couple of good looking angles. I found myself actually digging these new grills that BMW's put out. I don't know if that opinion is going to last for long, as more people on the internet tell me I'm wrong and stupid. But I actually think it reminds me of the electric cars, the i4 and the iX. And as far as I understand, there is going to be an electric version of the X2 coming in the future. This model I drove is totally gas powered. And there are 2 versions of it that are coming to market. There's an xDrive 28i, that's what I drove, which uses a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. And there's also the X2 M35 xDrive, which uses, as far as I can tell, the same engine, a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 70 more horsepower. I didn't even mention how much horsepower the original model had, but 200.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go. 240 horsepower for the xDrive 28i, and then 312 or something like that for the M35. And they both have 295 pound-feet of torque.
So I looked up the platform. It's the UKL2 platform.
Yes, UKL2 , of course.
So UKL1 was the mini hatch and convertible from 2014 to now, actually.
Oh, wow.
It's certainly, but
a 10-year-old platform.
UKL2 is it's not necessarily an evolution of that platform. It's a larger version of it. And it is the one that you'll find under the 2 Series Grand Coupe. Oof. It's also the platform for the Countryman. And it's been the platform for the Countryman since 2017.
Okay.
Even though it looks like there's 2 generations of Countryman on that platform.
Yeah.
It's also the Clubman, and then the X1, obviously, that you mentioned. And here's what's surprising, though, Sammy. It is the same platform as the previous X2 as well.
That is interesting. So it is a bigger product. Like, it's overall huge. Like, I can't understand how this thing can be considered a subcompact when I look at it.
I'm trying to figure out if there are multiple versions of the X2.
I mean, it could be like TNGA kind of thing. You know what I mean? Remember, like Toyota's TNGA, they say everything rides on TNGA.
Right. It is the same. It is UKL2. So it's interesting that they've gone in such a different direction styling wise, because you're right. When you compare these 2 vehicles close together, they don't look anything like each other. It's kind of a blander look on the new one, I think. And part of that is, so? Yeah, I think so. And part of that is the more protruding proboscis at the front of the vehicle.
That's what I called out. I think I liked it.
But I don't think it's as visually striking on the vehicles
as the old one, which looked. I mean, maybe that's a design language thing, but the old one looked like it was still in motion. Like, it looked really like that to me said coupe, crossover coupe. This just, like I said, looks like a sedan, right?
Yeah, it kind of looks like a sedan. I'm looking. It's also it's 8 inches longer.
Yeah, it's huge. I said that. Didn't I say it's huge?
You said it was longer, but you didn't say specifically. I'm bringing that number up because I'm looking at the body shape, and the hatchback on the original X2, it's just gone. Like, you're getting a stretch at the rear, which I think was probably done for practicality reasons that you were mentioning before. Yeah. So that's, I think, where, I mean, obviously the nose sticks out farther too, so there's going to be a couple of inches there, but that's where I think you're gonna notice the biggest differences between the 2 vehicles. It's also kind of crazy that you can get a version of the current X2 that weighs 4,600 pounds.
It's huge. Yeah,
that's
it's heavy.
1,000 pounds heavier than the heaviest old X2.
Yeah. So let's talk, we talked platform. I mentioned powertrains really briefly. There's the motor has been revised. They've changed the injection port and port and direct injection on it. They've added a Miller cycle to hopefully make it more efficient. And I think that worked kind of minutely. There's also a new 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which is standard for both products. And there's a front limit slip diff at the front.
I mean, it's going to be tough to be more fuel efficient when you're that much heavier.
Yes. Right?
Like the lightest version of the X2 now is within 100 pounds of the heaviest version of the old X2.
Yes. So it is, there's a lot new here. And in my opinion, I found the powertrain to be really a highlight of the product. It surprised me. I actually, upon writing this review and doing the video for it, I had to do a retrospective and think of the last time that BMW has released a disappointing powertrain. Like, I can't remember it. I think this is a pretty good engine, and I think it felt really... There are some people who
don't like the 4 cylinders.
I think the 4-cylinder really delivers on what it's supposed to do. This one, it's quick. I mean, this thing does the lesser powered version of this car does 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds, and the faster one I think does it in 5, which is quick, man.
But what's the personality of that engine like?
Yeah, it's not like rowdy, it's not like engaging. It's not going to push you. But I do find that new 7-speed dual clutch to be really well behaved. I was caught off guard by that because I think BMW has had a couple of DCTs that were a bit weird, I think is the best way to describe it.
Does it have a park setting or
nope?
It doesn't?
It doesn't.
Oh my
so
goodness.
when you press the on off button, the start stop button, it just applies the parking brake, or you can do it manually and then turn the vehicle off as well.
I just don't understand that. Like and that's a BMW thing because they do that in their EVs as well.
Yes.
I'm currently driving a BMW EV that does not have a park setting.
Isn't that weird? This one also has an interesting. My vehicle had an M Sport package, and one of the paddles had this label that said "Boost" on it. And when you have to press and you have to pull and hold that, and it fires it off into the most aggressive setting that is available. So it tightens up all of the settings of the most sport or sport plus settings for 30 seconds or maybe 10 seconds, so that you.
What do you mean? Like it tightens the settings? It's not just an engine thing?
No, I don't think it's just an engine thing. I think it also adjusts the suspension as well.
It's like a suspension boost?
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, and I also think
it lower the car?
No, it doesn't. But I do think it was funny. Like, I think it is like a very. It's not as long as I think the Porsche one is. Porsche has that sport response button that you press and it does it for like 30 seconds, and after you do your pass in like 2 seconds, you're sitting there with this car that's like
burning so much fuel.
Yeah, it's at the red line.
It's like 8,000 RPM.
You're like, what am I doing here? So I always think it's funny that for this one is a little bit more subdued on that, but it gets the job done. A major element here that I want to talk about are gimmicks, and BMW loves giving their cars gimmicks. They love giving them weird technology that you haven't heard of or thought of in a vehicle before.
Stuff you'll never use, like gesture control, or what's the laser, the 3D control thing where you can move your hand over a fake. Yeah, it's stuff.
So I actually, the 3D gesture control was always a goofy thing, but I think whenever you showed it to friends, they always thought that was really neat, and everyone would want to see if they could do the twiddle their fingers in the air and raise the volume. This car, I don't think has. I think BMW is over gesture control.
Oh no, they're not.
They're not? You've got a car that's operating. Okay. What they are over in this product is rotary knobs for the iDrive. I don't have...
What?
I didn't have a rotary knob for the iDrive.
Wow.
It was completely... The infotainment system is completely touchscreen oriented. There is a volume roller, like a rocker for the volume on the near the gear selector. And that's kind of it.
Did you pop the glove compartment and check for an emergency iDrive knob?
I didn't check specifically for that, but I don't think it would be all the way over there, because that would be even worse than just using the touchscreen, because we used to like the rotary knob. I used to think that the only stupid part about it was trying to type in an address or a name and just felt like you're dialing an alphabet, But instead, in this car, you have a whole bunch of weird features that I didn't think a car needed. There's extra drive modes. One, for example, was called Digital Art. which caught me off guard.
Yeah, I have that in the vehicle I'm driving now too. I'm not going to talk too much more about that because that, I'm basically doing next week's podcast now. But
So digital art, when I turned it on, it says start audio guide, and then
does it say welcome Picasso?
It didn't say that, but
waste of opportunity there.
What happens is the car splashes a digital sort of a unique digital wallpaper on the infotainment screen, and then you'd press this this audio guide, and then I suppose the artist would walk you through something about
Shouldn't I be driving? I want to circle back to the part where we're driving.
No, as soon as you start driving, the audio guide stopped, so I didn't know what that was all about. Furthermore, as we've talked about in the past, there's an interior cabin camera, and this is not built for safety features like it is in Subarus. This is for joy, I suppose, and you can take a picture, a very fisheye picture of yourself and your passengers in the car.
This is the strangest thing that I've heard you say about it. Like, I know you're super into the Subaru robot camera that watches you and keeps you safe, but
yes,
you're telling me there is a selfie camera, and not only is it a selfie camera, but it's like apparently using like 5 years ago's telescopic lens kind of walleye look.
Fisheye, yeah. And then you can, because the photo is taken on the car, then it provides you a QR code, and then you scan the QR code, and then you can download the photo onto your phone, and of course you can share it on social media.
Can I view the photo in artist mode in the car?
Yeah, you should, and you should be able to provide your own digital audio guide for that.
Follow up, yeah. Like, what face am I making in this photo? Follow up question: how long before the Kia boys hack these cameras and are taking photos of everyone without their knowledge?
I was looking at this feature and I was reading about it, and I'm like, I don't know who this is for. Am I out of touch?
I just told you who it's for.
Am I out of touch with the world? And then, of course, there was another feature. There's a digital drive recorder where it's basically a dash cam, but you have to be aware of when you want to use it.
It's a dash cam, but it only points at your face.
No, this points outside the car, or any of the other cameras, as far as I understand. But like I said, a dash cam, as far as I understand, the purpose of dash cams is for like security or safety purposes or insurance purposes.
For YouTube
and
purposes.
They're always running, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to like, oh, I got to turn on this dash cam and then turn it on. And whatever
if you're
happens,
about to be in an accident.
Yeah, whatever happens,
your first instinct.
So that's what's going on in this thing. I don't think that's a super useful feature in a crossover. Maybe it's better for a track-oriented vehicle where you want to record your lap.
Is it a button you can push and hold down, or how does it work?
No, you've got to find it on the app screen and then press it, and then press it.
It's not happening.
That's what I'm saying. And then there's another feature that I pointed out. There's a video game console in the vehicle, which allows you to use your smartphone as the controllers. This is only accessible while the car is in park. And there were some really shovelware or like really garbage kind of games in there. They're somewhat entertaining, but they would have been free on the Google Play Store or something like that.
They're not free in the car. I have to pay.
They are what you would consider like freeware. You know what I mean? Like This doesn't look like a quality product. But then there is like something like called Overcooked, which is a fun little game that you can play with your friends. And I keep wondering about this, and it's like, imagine you and 3 friends wanted to go to a party, but you couldn't go to each other's houses because either you live at home and your parents don't want you to have a party there or something. And then you're just like, let's just have a party in our car. And that's how it works.
Yeah, you know what a party in a car is called? Like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
And then you can take a selfie of yourselves. And then I guess really be stoked about that.
Hey, so did you get to drive the car, or did you just party? Did you just party in it while taking selfies in your driveway? Like it feels like there's a lot to do that doesn't involve actually driving.
Of course, I did drive the car. It's very responsive. It feels like a solid BMW on the road. It doesn't feel like the old school, sort of really engaging hot hatch style.
It's not like UKL1
X2. It's not. But I didn't drive the same powertrain that I did in the past. I mean, I'm comparing my experience to this car with one that had over 300 horsepower, and I didn't have that model, but I did have the M Sport package, which is supposed to include the updated suspension, and it was fine. Honestly, it was a really good drive. I found it to be responsive without being too stiff. And I found the powertrain really solid. So I'm just trying to identify here who this car is for, and as far as I can understand, this is not BMW's kind of, I don't know, maybe BMW's bread and butter has kind of moved on. We used to me, the reason you get a BMW is because of the 3 Series, the 5 Series. Those are some sports sedans or executive sedans. You get
the X3 or the X5. I mean,
and those are a bit. And then when you take a look at the X3 and X5, you've got products that are luxurious, comfortable, and high tech. And I think that's what this X2 kind of demonstrates. This is not the fun to drive stuff anymore. This is kind of like the wow, I'm in an expensive product, an expensive car full of technology that doesn't make sense.
Speaking of expensive, how much is it?
You know what? I only had Canadian pricing. Let me take a look at my US pricing because that would have made more sense. It starts at...
You could tell me the Canadian pricing.
No, I don't want it.
Okay. Because I'm looking at, while you're looking that up.
Sorry, 52,000 for the M35i model, and then 42,000, $10,000 cheaper for the X-Drive 28i.
So if this is $42,000, how much is a base X3?
How much is a base X3? That's a good point. I will look that up.
I'm going to say 48.
I think it should be cheaper. Am I crazy?
Well, it's not going to be cheaper than the X2.
Oh. My internet's not working. Are we on a call together? Aren't we? The internet should be working.
It should be working. I think you're being locked out of the BMW site, though, because you didn't upload your selfies.
That's true.
You have to pay the selfie tax.
The X3 starts at 46.9, but that's for a rear-wheel drive model.
So you can make a huge upgrade. like right off the bat. You can pay $3,000 more, I guess.
Yeah.
And get a class above vehicle that is better in pretty much every way. Doesn't have the selfie cam.
Doesn't have the video game console.
Yeah, but is going to, actually as a vehicle, maybe suit your needs better. I took a look at sales figures for the X2. Yep. Obviously, we don't have sales figures for this one because, it just came out. But if you look at how the X2 has traditionally sold in the United States, it came out in 2018. And that was by far its best year. It was like they sold 16,000 examples. And in 2021, they sold 6,000. So that's a really big drop. 2022 is the nearest year I have, and it sold 2,600 examples. The thing is, if you look at Europe, it's the other way around. They actually went up for a bit. It was 36,000 the first year, and then 45,000 the second year, and then down to about 30,000, which is where it has kind of hovered. Okay. This really suggests, where I'm going with this is, sometimes you get automakers that have a product that was built for their home market.
Yeah.
And they bring it over here because maybe they can fill white space in a showroom, especially in the SUV world. And it doesn't matter too much how the vehicle does because they're going to be building a certain number of them. Maybe it's cheaper for them to build more than to build less just from a parts supplier situation. Yeah. And they're going to try and get rid of that excess inventory wherever they can. So I kind of feel like the X2 up until now hasn't really been a priority in North America for BMW, but maybe that's changed, and that's why we have this more generic family style version of the car versus the European flashy hatchback version of the car.
So I want to talk about the generic part of this. It doesn't look super generic. It's first of all, actually, I want to go back to what you said. I don't want to deny what you just said. I want to acknowledge what you said. I agree with you. I think that they had a car that was super European, and it brought the best of both, the best and worst of that kind of design philosophy. It was really good to drive, but it was kind of small, cramped, and didn't really suit North American needs, right? And then they built this one that's a bit larger, a totally more luxury oriented. And I actually think that all of these weird little features are what make it stand apart from a similar product in the marketplace.
So you're saying that it's only the doodads and the gizmos?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you would get this thing. The X2 has always been the alternative to the established X1, right? The normal X1. And then you've got this other one that's loaded with tech, which I'm sure will eventually come to other BMWs. But you want this because you want somebody to ask you about your car, for you to tell them about these weird things. This is why it looks so weird. It is the X2. It's different. And I think that works out because I'm thinking of other subcompact luxury crossovers like the Lexus UX, for example, or
The Lexus UX is much funkier style.
you think so, but it doesn't have all this interior gizmos and weirdness.
I'm not talking about gizmos. I'm just talking about, first impression, because I think that most of these vehicles are going to be sold to people who don't care about the gizmos and are looking for the most the most affordable way to buy the badge.
The badge.
Yeah. When I look at a compact, or it's not compact, but subcompact luxury car, to me, people are buying the badge.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because if you were going to be buying for practicality or utility, you wouldn't care about the badge. You would buy a RAV4.
But then that's what I'm trying to say. If this car isn't as practical as some of the other products, like an X1 or an X3, or like you mentioned, even a mainstream brand, but it does have something that's different. It does have something. That's one of my biggest complaints that I used to have about the entry-level luxury car, is that it was just the badge attached to a really generic car. And this isn't quite that, right? It's got these weird things that make you feel like you spent money on something.
Okay, but I guess I can't see myself using those features.
Oh, of course not. It's not for you or me, right? Like, and I don't.
It's again, for what, a 19-year-old?
Exactly.
$50,000?
It's so bizarre, right? I would guess so, but
wow. And we've seen how many of those, based on BMW's sales figures for the X2, we've seen how many of those people there are. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but are they going to be buying an X2?
I agree. I agree.
Is this like a really nice quinceañera present? Is that really what we're looking at?
Maybe a little bit older than that, a college kid maybe, but a privileged college kid? I don't know. Or straight out of school.
Definitely a privileged college kid.
Yeah. But then if you're a privileged college kid, wouldn't you just ask daddy for like something else? I don't know.
A Sentra SER? I hear you, Sami.
Oh, yeah. Man,
that's one of the privileged college kids.
Those were so cool growing up. They had the sweetest, stiffest suspension. We'd lose so many teeth over that.
They're still around, aren't they?
That doesn't count.
All right.
What have you been driving? You've been driving a luxury car that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so I unexpectedly ended up behind the wheel of something that's related to a vehicle I drove, I want to say a couple months ago, and that's the Mercedes-AMG EQE Sedan. I drove the EQE 500 crossover SUV. It must have been January.
This is the worst way to make cars. Sorry for them. Now you've added the nomenclature, which is EQE, and then the trim level, which is 500, and then the body style, which is SUV or sedan, right?
Yeah, and then when you get to the AMG, it's no longer Mercedes-Benz, it's Mercedes-AMG EQE Sedan. So like,
and you got to pay attention to all of this before I know what you're talking about.
Yet another thing that has changed. So this is a vehicle that, very much like the EQS, does not stand out in terms of style. I would say the EQE, the AMG version, does a little bit of a better job because the wheels are actually really crazy. Like they had this crazy border. They look like they're multi-piece. It's quite something. But the rest of the car is, much like every other electric vehicle Mercedes is offering under the EQ banner, pretty bland to look at. It's kind of a jelly bean. It was built for the what am I thinking of? Wind tunnel.
Yeah.
They want it to be as efficient as possible, so they could get the maximum range from their battery pack. And it's really uninspiring as a result. You get inside the car. My vehicle had the hyperscreen, the MBUX hyperscreen, which is like a giant, you have a screen in front of the driver, one in the middle, and then one in front of the passenger for reasons that I don't understand. But all of that together, my Canadian market car was $136,000, and
whoa,
$10,000 of that was the MBUX hyperscreen. You can get it without it if you want. In the States, the car starts.
If you want a focused AMG SUV, right?
In the States, the car starts at, I believe, $106,000.
Is that the lightweight package? Maybe they should charge another $10,000 to remove the hyperscreen.
I don't even want to think about how much this weighs. So it's a dual motor car.
Yep.
It's considerably more powerful than the EQE 500. It has 617 horsepower and 701 pound-feet of torque. Those are some really big numbers. They get bigger, though, if you use Race Start, which is a feature that allows you to, I guess, terrify your passengers from a standing start. It adds 75 or 76 horsepower. Sorry, not 70. It goes up to 677 for the horsepower and 738 for the torque.
Holy.
It's part of the AMG Dynamic Plus package, which is funny because that package is standard with the AMG. So I'm not sure why it's called a package, but anyway, I want to address the power of this car because it is a little bit deceptive, Sammy.
Okay, sure. Talk to me.
They claim 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. That's very, very fast. When you're driving the car, it feels very, very quick most of the time. But unlike most of the EVs I've driven, the amount of power that you get in the EQE is directly linked to the drive mode. And I know you're thinking, oh, that makes sense. If I choose the sportiest drive mode, I get more power. And that is true. But what's also true is if you're in normal drive mode, you only get like 80% of the normal power of the car.
Hey, what the?
Yeah. So I want to double check these figures.
That's misleading.
There are three main drive modes. There's like a drive mode where you can program it yourself, obviously. Then there's a drive mode that's just called like comfort or eco. I can't remember which. There's a sport mode and there's like a sport plus mode, that kind of thing. So you have these three main levels of performance. And from what I remember, and I'm trying to verify this now. Okay, yes. The full output of the engine is only available in Sport Plus mode. That's the only time you're getting like the 617 horsepower. And it's also the only way you can access race start, which happens, you hit the brake, you hit the gas, and then it gives you race start.
Okay, I'm okay with that because to me, that's a lot of power. And you need to be like maybe awake to you need to deliberately have access to that power. It's like hold on, it's like that special key for the Hellcat, right?
I don't think so though, because the special key, when you get in, you have full power. It's not like you have to also choose a drive mode. So if you go to sport, you're down to 90%. If you're in comfort, you're at 80%. And there's a mode I didn't mention earlier. It's called slippery, which is like for dealing with snow. It cuts power in half.
No, that's wrong. It needs to be 110% in slippery conditions.
My problem is you're driving it in comfort, you have 80% of the power. It's just not great. I feel it's weird. It's a weird customer experience. And it's still very fast, obviously. I mean, 80% of 617 horsepower is crazy.
But isn't that just comparable to a regular non-AMG version?
I don't know. You'd have to do the math on.
I don't want to.
That. The other thing though that is not necessarily obvious about accessing the full power of this car. Remember, I said the Sport Plus gives you 90% of the power, or 100% of the power.
Yeah.
And Sport is 90. It turns out that Sport Plus is also 90, unless the certain conditions are met, and most of those conditions have to do with the temperature of the battery pack.
Oh, right. Okay. Alrighty. Now there's a lot of nuance here.
I was driving in temperatures that ranged between quite a bit below freezing or right around freezing or just a little bit above. That was the range I was in. Okay. I was never once able to access the full power of the EQE.
How do you know? It just locks you out of a mode?
Because on the dashboard, instead of a tachometer, it has a screen that shows you power output. Mm-hmm. And that screen has you can think of it as a red line, and that red line moves depending on which mode you're in. Okay. So if you're in normal and you hit or comfort, it shows you a bar at 80% or like a little red dot at 80%. Then you go to sport, that rises to 90. And then when I would go to Sport Plus, it stayed at 90. And Sammy, when I tried to access race mode in Sport Plus, it would just tell me the conditions are not possible to access to access race launch right now.
Okay. So you're telling me they expect every single AMG buyer to have like a checklist that they have to go through to ensure that they have the maximum performance of their vehicle.
What I'm telling you, it's a little bit different. I mean, it's obvious that most launch control systems don't function unless the steering wheel is straight, the car is level, and the engine is up to temperature. I understand that. But the fact is, in Sport Plus, I'm still locked into 90% of the power because the battery temperature never rose above 4 degrees Celsius, even after driving for an hour and a half on the highway. Wow. The temperature did not change on the battery. So if you buy a Mercedes-AMG EQE Sedan, for 5 months of the year, you're going to be locked out of the full performance that you paid for. I can't think of a single other electric vehicle manufacturer that does the same thing.
I mean, I don't know who does it. Like, maybe people are less transparent about it, but I haven't heard of this, right?
It would be one thing if all it did was lock you out of race start. But to lock you out of that final 10% of the power, which is, 60 horses, that's not nothing. I don't get it. I don't understand how, I understand the engineering behind it, and Mercedes is probably worried about damaging the battery. Yeah. because it's being used in an aggressive way. A lot of power is being pulled out of it at a temperature where it could cause damage. But if that's the case, you need to back off on the power delivery in your car, not advertise your car at a certain level of power and then not deliver it.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that's tough. That's going to cause. I mean, let me be clear though. Mercedes has been really botching its EV delivery. I think all of their EVs are really struggling. Maybe the EQB is the least polarizing to me, but they all the other ones kind of look a little like lame. They drive a little funky. They all have these weird interiors that I don't think resonate super well. And the pricing is all over the place. And then there's the nomenclature that we mentioned earlier, which makes them even more convoluted to kind of understand or wrap your head around, right?
Yeah. So just kind of rounding out the experience, you're paying over $100,000 for this vehicle, regardless of where you live. The range for the vehicle is 225 miles. That's not great.
No.
That's pretty average, I think. I mean, it's usable, but for a vehicle this expensive, it kind of feels like a little bit of a consolation prize. When I was driving it when things warmed up a little bit, I thought it was pretty accurate in terms of the battery. It's a 90.6 kilowatt hour battery, and that's works out to about 360 kilometers of driving, I think. And the car was actually showing me another 50 past that, based on if I drove more conservatively. So I think Mercedes is being a little bit careful with their range advertising. I just wish they had been similarly careful with the drivetrain's power and its capability. I shouldn't be buying a compromised AMG. Like that's the bottom line. I should have the baddest car in the Mercedes-Benz lot if I drive off with an AMG, like in that particular segment. And because of this, I did not have that feeling in this car. And if I had paid that money and seen that 90% stuck on the dash, I would have been so frustrated. Yeah,
of course. Absolutely. That's a lot of money to lock something out of a buyer, right? Like with nothing for you able to do, nothing that you can do. So I think that's my biggest concern here is.
So yeah, like you said, Mercedes has kind of botched its EV rollout. They're making these non-memorable cars that are really, really quick in a straight line. And I guess the handling is fine in this car. I don't have any complaints about that, but it never made me want to drive it quickly. And I was, disappointed by how the vehicle managed its power output. That's, I think, all I really want to say about the EQE. It's disappointment. It's a disappointing vehicle, and it's strange because it's so overwhelming in other ways. Oh, the other thing, there's actually 3 other things I do want to mention about it.
Okay. Thank
you for reminding me that with your pause there. I know it might not have been intentional, but it worked. The braking system on the car, for people who haven't driven an electric vehicle or a hybrid, there's often a point of interchange where you can feel the car moving from the regenerative braking system to the traditional braking system. On a performance car, it can sometimes be more pronounced. And on the AMG here, there was really a big gap. Like I would be braking and then I would feel the transition and then suddenly the brakes were back again. Ooh. That's not confidence inspiring in such a heavy vehicle that can go so quickly.
No.
I also had a problem with the HUD, the head-up display. It was enormous. Like I'm talking the size of my chest out over the dash.
What's wrong with that? I love that.
What's wrong with that is I couldn't change it. Oh. So it would put as much information out there as possible. I don't need to see driving directions and other information. I just need to see my speed and maybe the speed limit.
Okay.
I couldn't figure out how to change that. The third and final thing that is a little embarrassing about the car, and I'm sure I can turn this on and off, but when you use the fob or walk close to it to unlock or lock the car, it makes like the Netflix sound combined with the THX sound together, like and it's really loud.
Okay.
And everyone turns to look at you and is thinking, who's this jerk with his car that basically thinks it's Hans Zimmer every time he opens the door. And that is wild. Like that is, I think, a very in your face AMG thing. Final thing, The car has a puddle lamp that shows a giant Mercedes logo,
Yeah.
like really big, like pizza size, but only on the driver's side.
What happens on the passenger side?
I don't know. I asked my passenger if they had one and they didn't, and then they came around and saw mine. They're like, "Where's mine?" I'm jealous. So it was just weird. So okay, I'm gonna stop talking about this car now.
Okay.
I'm not sure who this car is for. I would like to see Mercedes get things together on the AMG front. I think they could do so much better. And that's all I have to say about this vehicle.
Okay, wow. I think it's fair. I think your judgment on this is totally fair. I think that Mercedes has a big issue on their hands with their EV rollout. I don't get it. I don't know how they can botch, because it seems like the engineering for the most part is there. Maybe not with these AMGs, but other ones. I mean, I don't know. Like
we've seen companies like BMW build EVs that don't look like jelly beans.
Yep.
You know, that have visual personality, whether you like it or not.
Or Genesis, or like.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's possible, and Mercedes has decided not to do that, and it's puzzling.
Agreed. And I don't know. I don't know what the best. I cannot imagine them recovering from these design decisions quickly. Do you know what I mean?
I don't see where this evolves to. I don't understand where the EQ series evolves to. Both the EQE and the EQS are so similar looking. Even if you were to, what changes could you possibly make that don't alter the aerodynamics, which is clearly why these cars were designed this way?
But the benefit isn't even there. I mean, this thing doesn't have more range than everything else, right?
No, it doesn't. And part of that is perhaps because it's ridiculously powerful. But at the same time, yeah. That's a legitimate concern.
We've talked about this before in terms of luxury automakers that are doing an excellent job on the EV front. We've said that BMW seems to be right up there at the top, right?
Yes.
We'll agree on that. Genesis doesn't seem so far behind either.
For sure. But Genesis hasn't taken as many steps towards dedicated EVs as BMW or Mercedes has.
Okay.
They've done mostly conversion cars, which are very good. And then they have the one dedicated EGMP car.
Which I don't really love, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And we're still waiting for, Acura and Lexus to do that.
And Audi and Porsche have delivered some pretty good EVs too.
That's true. I'm a big fan of the Audi GT. Is that what it's called?
e-tron GT. Yeah.
E-tron GT.
And I like the Taycan. Like, I think that's the pinnacle for me. That's peak.
And I think that those, even beyond them being good now or being good a few years ago, I feel like there's headroom for those cars. I feel like I can see those cars evolving in a way I don't see at AMG.
Okay. Interesting. Good point. Anything else you want to talk about this week?
No, I think I'm tapped out.
What are we driving? What are we driving next week?
Next week, I'm going to be talking about the BMW i5 M60.
Okay. And next week, I've got yes.
I was just going to say, I think it's in many ways equivalent to this EQE.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Just in terms of market position.
Yeah. And I'll be driving a Subaru Ascent. Although it's kind of boring to talk about Subarus, they've recently been on a sales tear, and they were. Did you know that Subaru was named the best mainstream automaker by Consumer Reports 2 years in a row?
I thought. Okay.
Don't
you own like 6 Outbacks?
I own 2 right now.
Between the two of us, we own 4 Subarus. And you own an almost Subaru.
Yes, that's right. Mine is made by Subaru, but doesn't have the same badge. That's right.
Yeah, so
I think if we're talking about where that automaker is and why they're getting so much attention, and whether or not it's deserved, actually, to be honest, because there's a lot to talk about with this automaker.
All right. Well, if you want to hear us talk about that next week, you can go to unnamedautomotivepodcast.com and find the episode there, or you can go to any podcatcher, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, all of that stuff. We are on there. And if you do find us on your favorite podcatcher, please leave a little comment or a rating, or tell your friends, or subscribe. That's always really helpful.
I love that. If you don't want to tell your friends, but you want to talk to somebody, talk to us. Go over to our website, unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. There's a contact form there. You fill it out, and whatever you're saying, it lands in our inbox. We read it. We usually discuss it. We talk about it on the podcast.
Sammy writes it down on a note, puts it under his pillow, dreams about it, writes about it in his dream journal.
Yeah, how did you know?
Because I dreamt about that too, Sammy.
Oh, yeah.
We're dreaming the same dream.
And then additionally, if you want to contact us another way. You can reach out to us on social media. You can find Ben on Instagram. He's at Hunting Benjamin. You can find me on the social media network formerly known as Twitter. I'm at Sami_ha, like you're laughing. Or you can just email us the old-fashioned way. It's Benjamin at benjaminhunting.com.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.